People only remember the ones who smile in storms, not the ones who collapse and disappear. And when the villagers saw the old woman laugh, even as her house sank in floodwater, people whispered she was either mad or magical, but none of them knew the truth. She had learned a secret no one else had, and it started long ago when she was just a girl sitting beside her mother, watching their crops die in a drought, and her mother smiled and told her happiness was not what happens to us, it is what we do with what happens. And those words stayed with her like fire in winter. And when her father died of fever, and the villagers cried, her mother still smiled and said, "Grief is a room you visit, not a place you live." And so the girl learned to carry joy like a lamp and not wait for the sun. And by the time she was a young woman, she could turn pain into purpose and sadness into strength. And when war came and took her brother, she did not wail. She walked into the ruins and fed children who had lost everything. And when they asked her how she could still smile, she said, "Happiness is not a visitor. It is a decision." And even when her own child fell sick and was taken by the same fever that claimed her father, she sat by the empty bed with tears in her eyes but laughter in her heart, because she remembered her mother's voice saying, "Never let your sorrow eat your light." And as the years passed, people began to whisper that she had something rare, something no death or disaster could steal, and they came to her for advice during floods and famines, and she would always say the same thing: happiness is not found, it is built. And she showed them how to build it piece by piece. Even when the world fell apart, and one day the river rose and her small house by the edge began to crumble, and everyone ran, but she stayed and stood barefoot in the water and laughed. Not because she was safe, but because she had already survived worse. And when they asked her why she was laughing, she said, "If I cry, will the river stop rising?" And they had no answer, and the young ones sat with her for hours, wanting to know how to feel peace when everything hurts. And she told them a story from her youth about how she once begged the sky for mercy and found none, until she realized mercy was not in the sky, it was in her own hands. And from that day on, she never begged again. She built joy in her garden, planted hope in her kitchen, and sang songs into every wall of her home. And when one of the young women asked her what to do when everything feels broken, she said, "Pick up the smallest piece and begin again." And when the wind took her roof and the storm took her floor, she still found a way to smile and say, "At least I am still standing." And in that moment, the people saw something stronger than safety. They saw freedom, the kind that comes only when you are not afraid to lose anything, because you have already chosen to hold on to joy. And years later, when she was too old to walk, they carried her to the fields where she once worked, and she smiled at the sky and said, "I am not afraid of the end, because I have lived every day like a beginning." And when a fire burned through the village and people screamed and wept, she told them the flames cannot burn what lives inside us. And they listened, because by now they had seen too much. They had seen her bury a husband and still dance. They had seen her lose everything and still give everything. And they realized happiness was not about having it all, it was about giving it all and keeping nothing but peace. And when a young boy asked her if she had ever wanted to give up, she said, "Every day, but I choose not to, and that is the point." And when he asked if she was ever angry, she said, "Yes, but I do not let anger build a home in me. I let it pass like a traveler." And that boy grew up remembering her words. And when his own wife died young and his son fell ill, he did not crumble. He walked outside under the same sky and whispered her words to the wind and found the strength to keep going. And so her legacy spread, not in books or monuments, but in the way people began to laugh in the middle of storms, and how they held each other tighter when things fell apart. And in every part of the village her voice echoed like a heartbeat, reminding them that no matter how dark it gets, there is always a light inside if you choose to keep it burning. And when the old woman finally lay down for the last time with her eyes closed and her hands folded, the villagers did not cry. They sat beside her with candles and songs and smiles, because she had taught them how to stay happy in every situation, not by escaping pain but by walking through it, holding hands and keeping their joy alive like fire. And even today her story is told whenever the rains return and children ask why people smile when thunder comes, and someone always says, "Because there once was an old woman who showed us how, and her name is spoken not with sorrow but with warmth, because she turned suffering into story and taught everyone that happiness is not what you wait for, it is what you create every single day with every single breath." And that is why her story will never die, because people will always need to be reminded that peace is not found in calm, it is born in chaos, and whoever carries it becomes unbreakable.